Today, we saw massive gaps up in the stock market. However, was it nothing more than a Trump trap? Now, when we look at the fear and greed index, we are finally out of extreme fear. However, we are still in the fear category. And could there be still more downside testing to come? When we come over and look at how the indices fared across the board, the Dow was up 419 points. The Nasdaq was up 407 points. S&P 500 up 88 points, with the Russell 2000 being up 2.75. When we look at advancing issues versus declining, overwhelmingly, there was more issues advancing than declining. There was 75.2% of issues advancing on the day. Then as we come over and look at the sectors across the board, a majority of sectors were in the green. The only two sectors in the red were energy, followed by consumer defensives. So what caused the major stock market rally out here today? Well, people were a little bit optimistic that a deal is going to be met and Trump may slash China tariffs by as much as 50%. However, will this be enough to bring China back to the table? And some of the clues that we saw ahead of time. Notice yesterday, if we looked at the dollar index, yesterday the dollar index was up. We look at gold, and I said this yesterday, gold is probably putting in a short-term top. And look at gold. From the high up here on gold, from all-time highs down to the low today, gold has dropped $240 or down 6.84%. Now, I am still looking for gold to come all the way down here, fill in the gap at about 31.77. But yesterday, gold was already giving us a heads up that maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of optimism out here in the stock market. Now, today, when that news came out about slashing tariffs for China, notice the dollar index on the move up higher. S&P 500 rocketing on the way up. So if you guys seen that wild candle around 9:35 a.m., like we talked about on the live stream, this is what caused that move out there. And if you guys don't want to miss the next time I go live, make sure you're subscribed. You have the bell notifications turned on for all. So if there's so much optimism in the market, why are we closing near the lows of the session? And something I do not like about this chart, we look at the 30-minute chart, notice we have 2 days of consecutive gaps on the way up, and a majority of gaps typically will come back and get filled. So are we going to start working our way back to fill in that gap? Because later on today, what do we learn? Bissett offers a gentler message saying America first does not mean America alone. And again, this is helping fuel that optimism out there. But then stocks slide after Bissett confirms no unilateral offer from Trump to cut China tariffs. So on one hand this morning, like, woo, optimism out there. Everything's going to be fine. I knew a trade deal was going to be done and things go rocketing up to the moon. But then they start to walk things back here just a bit. And when Bissett made that statement, notice the US dollar came crashing on the way back down. Notice the S&P 500 came substantially off the high. There was a lot of opportunities out here in the stock market today. We had lots of ranges out there. Now, along with a lot of opportunities out there, I want to let you guys know right now, there's 3 amazing prop firm deals out there. Apex Trader Funding right now, 90% off all evaluation accounts passed in 1 day, and special pricing for the 150, 250, and 300K accounts. My Fund and Futures, you can get the starter plan for only $82, and Take Profit Trader, 30% off all evaluation fees, and best yet, no activation fee. So we got to ask ourselves this question. Are they going to walk the market back a little bit? Did the market go a little bit too far, too fast? Because when we come over and look at the catalyst out here for the stock market, keep in mind, tomorrow, 8:30 a.m., we have the weekly unemployment claims. We get the core durable good orders coming out. Then at 10 a.m., we have existing home sales. So I don't think it's really going to be any of these news items that really freaks the market out a whole lot. I think it's going to be more along the lines, do we hear anything else in terms of tariff talks? However, we do have a lot of earnings coming out. Yesterday, we had Tesla come out with earnings, and this is something we talked about in the live stream as well. If we come over and look at a stock chart of Tesla real quick, Tesla today finished up 5.33%. If I just simply click right over here and we look at the earnings, there is a negative surprise of 34.09% to the downside on earnings. So why did Tesla go up? And this is a caveat that you guys want to pay attention to in the stock market. Just like when we get economic data and the data comes out bad and you see the market go up, that's actually an underlying bullish signal out here. Now, what I don't like is with all the gaps we have in the market, which way are we likely to go? We look at the volatility index today, closing with a doji-ish looking candle, down 7% on the session. And notice after about 10:30, we saw the VIX come all the way back up and almost try to fill the gap that it left behind from today. So we still need to keep an eye on the VIX. The VIX is still elevated. Even though we're not in the 30s, we're still above the mid 25s, which quite often rallies will tend to be sold, which is exactly what we've seen transpired out here today. Now, a little bit of good news, we did see crude oil going down, and why I say that's good news, it's good for us, the consumer at the pump. Also, lower energy prices will be good for inflation as well. Now, we come over and look at the SPY out here on the daily chart. We still have not come up here and filled the gap. However, if this low can hold, we do have a price target up here about 574.58. Now, with that price target, I'm not saying we're going to get there in 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. I'm just saying as long as this low holds, this is where the market is trying to make its way up towards. Now, could this pattern be busted? Yes. No pattern is 100%. And in order for this ABC pattern to be intact, we must get above the swing high over here at 548.67, which we have not been able to get above that price point just yet. Looking over here on the 4-hour chart, you can see the MACD indicator crossing on the way up. But again, I don't like the double gaps that we have out here. Then on the 30-minute chart, notice the MACD indicator today did have a little bit of a bearish cross. And the fact that we're closing near the lower edge of the range is a little bit troubling out here as well. To me, this is like a little bear flag-ish looking pattern, or the dreaded H pattern, or an intraday dreaded H pattern, which if that low breaks right here, that can give us a price completion down here at these lows, down here about 528.18, which really is not that far away from filling the gap from yesterday. Now, when we come over and look at the futures markets real quick, notice this is the area that really has my attention. As we look at the weekly profiles, notice this large gap in the profile, or we can say this is a minus development area. This is an inefficiency in the market, which the market loves to come back and repair those inefficiencies. So are we going to make our way down there? I think sooner than later, we are going to be making our way back down towards this area. And notice we were able to rotate from value area low all the way up to value area high from last week's profile. Then once we got above value area high, guess what? We came back down. So the target then becomes point of control. Then the next target is all the way back down here near value area low. And that would put us very close to essentially filling the gap that was left behind from today. As we come over and look at the daily profiles on the 30-minute chart, we can see that large gaping gap. Now, this is something you want to file away in your memory banks. Today, we were unable to take out the P point. So tonight, when we get the new floor trader pivots out, I want to go ahead and target the P point. I don't know where that level is going to be just yet, but fire off your charts, load up the pivot indicator, and wherever that P point is, that is going to be one of my target locations. Especially if we can start breaking below this low, not only will I want to focus on the P point, but I also want to turn my attention over here towards the gap being filled. Now, if we look at the volume profile levels, value area low will be about 5386.25. Point of control will be 5409.75. with value area high being 5454.75. So I want to be on the lookout. Do we flush below value area low? If the answer is yes, I'm going to turn my attention back over here towards that gap being filled. Now, when we come over and look at the Nasdaq real quick, notice we have two anchored VWAPs. The one above us is the anchored VWAP from all-time highs. The lower VWAP basically comes from the recent low in the market. And right now we're essentially sandwiched in between both of those areas on the chart. You can see today we did close near the lower end of the range. MACD indicator, however, is still bullish. But the fact that we have 2 days of back-to-back gaps lends to the case we are likely going to come back and start filling some of these gaps, especially when we have multiple days back-to-back where the market gaps in the same direction. Now, on the 4-hour chart, MACD indicator crossed to the upside, and it does look a little bit bullish on that front. I would just prefer to see a little bit of a pullback, fill the first gap, and then turn and run back up. As we come over and look at the 30-minute chart today, kind of a double distribution profile. You see the distribution up here at the high, and then right here. Now, if we do start to bounce up tomorrow, we have a minus development area I would want to target at about 458.62. So tomorrow, if we're hanging out above value area low, then I do want to turn my attention towards that minus development area. If we were breaking value area low, which is about 453.58, I then want to turn my attentions all the way back down for the gap to be filled at about 444.26. Now, when we come over and look at the Nasdaq on the 4-hour chart, notice, what do we see off the weekly profile? We see that same inefficiency in the market. We had that large gap up from last night, and now we were able to rotate all the way through last week's volume profile areas. Then today we breached above value area high, and now we're currently trading below it. So as long as we're trading below 18,962.75, I want to go ahead and favor a little bit more downside testing, kind of coming back into the gap from last night. Then over here on the daily profiles, on the 30-minute chart, this zone is an area we had mapped out today on the live stream. Notice the market was able to make it all the way back down towards that area. And we had some pretty good micro trades that fired off for some huge runners in this market. However, I did jump out a little bit before we got to that area. I got scared a little bit, and then the market bounced back up and I didn't get a chance to get back in. However, if we look at the volume profile levels, value area low is going to be right here, about 18,732. The point of control will be about 18,900, with value area high being about 18,997. Now, if we can come down and start breaking value area low, I want to turn my attention over here towards the gap being filled. And like we talked about with the S&P 500, today we never had any interaction with the P point. So tonight at 6 p.m., make sure you have your pivot indicator turned on, because wherever the pivot migrates to, that is going to be an additional target that we can aim for out here tonight or even early tomorrow morning. Now, if you'd like to see the new updates with Take Profit Traders, the pros and the cons, there is a new pro, there is a new con, then make sure to watch this next video right here.